The Bay of Pigs is known as the event where infiltrated exiled Cubans sent by the Central Intelligence Agency used an attack plane to bomb the anti-aircraft defense system of Cuba, and then they were supposed to enter the country to start a violent movement with the help of the population against Fidel Castro. This plan was accepted by President John F. Kennedy because when he came to power, the plan was already developed and he didn't know the reasons of its existence very well. The plan eventually failed because the people of Cuba were satisfied with Castro's government system, so the rebels were killed by Castro's orders. Then their plane was found, and it was discovered that it originally belonged to the CIA. Cuba knew USA's intentions in trying to overthrow their government. After all the controversy, Kennedy refused to continue with further actions related to this plan just after taking all responsibility of the act. Kennedy started to realize that the military sector had too much power of decision over the nation's actions and that the president was nothing but something aesthetic. He was against the military action having too much influence on the people, so he fired CIA's first director, Allen Dulles. Laos was the next country to have their government overthrown by the Pentagon and later with the help of the CIA, but Kennedy refused. Propaganda to justify the invasion described the country as a strategical buffer state and that with the attack they could prevent a huge domino effect that could lead to Russia conquering Asian territories and eventually becoming a large empire. Kennedy disapproved the plan because of the previous incident with the CIA regarding the Bay of Pigs. Since this denial, the military sector of the US started to dislike and to question John Kennedy's decision as a president.
Laos, strategic buffer state between the Red Bloc and Free Asia, is watched with concern by all the world as fighting intensifies between communist rebel forces and the pro-Western regime. Relatively small numbers are fighting in the mountainous, densely forested land.
In 1961, Khrushchev was in a meeting with John Kennedy regarding United States nuclear weaponry placed in Germany. Russia's concern was that a German leader could take control of these weapons and attack Russia directly without USA being able to do anything against it. People living in East Germany were migrating to West Germany. Khrushchev took this as an insult, so he requested that a separation in Berlin must be created, the Berlin Wall, to divide the US West Germany from Russia's East Germany. John F. Kennedy refused and saw Khrushchev's intentions as an indirect attack, so he placed troops in East Germany as a threat to Khrushchev. The wall started as a wiring in the so-called frontier inside the capital, and it eventually turned into an actual concrete wall. Eventually, the wall served to prevent further conflict because without it, war would have officially started. Operation Ortsac was a mock invasion led by the United States to overthrow a government. It was used as an indirect message of threat for Fidel Castro and Cuba. The US wanted to show superiority and ability to overthrow a foreign country at any time they wanted. This was a final warning to Cuba. During the war with Vietnam, guerrilla warfare started to become more present in the conflict. US Army troops were sent to Vietnam and Vietnamese people were attacked with Agent Orange, a herbicide used by the US military. This caused a lot of health issues to the population, such as mental disabilities, genetic diseases, and deformities, but also extra toes and fingers at the time of birth. In 1962, Khrushchev moved undeployable nuclear weapons with critical missing parts to Cuba in order to threaten the United States to not invade or attack Russia with their nuclear weapons placed all around their country. During the flight of a US spy plane, images of these weapons were captured and sent. The United States got these images and saw the placements of the nuclear weaponry as an imminent Russian attack from Khrushchev, mostly because there was never a public announcement of this weaponry movement, so they started preparing for the first strike. Neither side actually attacked, but the tension grew bigger and bigger as they were about to make the first move. This event is known today as the Cuba Missile Crisis. If any of them took any action and made the first strike, it would have led to the Third World War.
When Kennedy found out that the Soviet Union was storing nuclear weapons in Cuba, he announced he would send ships to surround it so that no more Russian weapons would enter the island, and declared that any nuclear attack would be considered as an act of war. An American ship fired torpedoes as warning shots to a Russian ship that was approaching Cuba. This was without knowing that the Russian ship was being escorted by deep-water submarines. With one of them being hit, a nuclear war was almost fired. The submarine crew believed the war had started and were preparing to launch a missile with the United States as a target. A sergeant in the submarine managed to calm everyone down and prevent a nuclear world war from happening. Kennedy sent his brother to Russia, who made an agreement in which the Soviets would remove their bombs from Cuba and the US would do the same in Turkey. Due to the high tension, if there was an attack, the Soviet Union and the US would have immediately launched all their nuclear weapons against each other. The Russian military wasn't happy with the new agreement and decided to fire Khrushchev. They wanted to have more power, create more weapons. Kennedy was just tired of war. He wanted peace. He thought, if it's possible to have peace, then why are we not having it? Kennedy's bomb test came to an end because he wanted to prevent a war with Russia. He also planned to work together with them in an exploration to the moon because Russia was ahead in the space race and had already offered it before. Kennedy challenged the military several times, rejecting their plans because he wanted peace. He faced them in the Bay of Pigs, Vietnam, Laos, and Cuba. The military felt like they had no power anymore. They had to get rid of him so they could regain their power. Kennedy was in his car with his wife promoting his re-election in Texas, where he was shot in the middle of the street by multiple shooters. No one really knows who was the assassin, since he had many enemies.